Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa ba'd. Inshallah, we want to talk in this video about the physical impurities. So we said one half of tahara is removal of physical impurities. So we want to know what are these physical impurities that we need to be cautious of. And in the book that we cover, the sheikh and some of the shuyukh, they separate physical impurities into three categories based on the way that they're described in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and the way that they are cleaned. So the first one is najasah mughalladha, which is a major physical impurity. The second category is najasah mutawassita, or intermediate, medium impurities. And the last one is najasah mukhaffafa, which is mild impurities. And the word in Arabic najasah here refers to the physical impurity, right? And so in the first category you have najasah mughalladha, which is the major physical impurity, which is number one, the saliva of a dog. And that's because the Prophet ﷺ in one hadith stated that if a dog were to lick one of your utensils, that you should clean it 7 times, the first one with dirt. And so because of the precaution that's taken around the saliva of a dog, the scholars put it in a category of its own, and they add to it the saliva of a pig through analogy. And so if when cleaning the saliva of a dog, we would follow the prophetic teaching here, which is to clean it 7 times, the first of it with dirt. However, it would also be sufficient to clean it using modern cleaning detergents. For example, if you use soap on the area, that is sufficient for you to use that soap and to wash that area that was affected by the dog's saliva and to have it cleaned. So that is the first category. The second category, which is the intermediate or the medium impurities, which is 1, human urine and feces. 2 is wadi, which is a type of white fluid that comes out of the private area, which would be a physical impurity. The droppings or the feces and urine of inedible animals. The menstrual blood and postnatal bleeding. And we mentioned that, in fact, any type of bleeding would be added to this category, any type of blood would be added to this category, according to the majority of the scholars. And finally, carrion, which is decaying flesh of dead animals. However, the exception would be the human being, the dead human being, the dead fish and locusts, the dead insects that have no flowing blood like flies, ants, bees, and the like, the bones, horns, hooves, hair, and feathers of the dead animal, which can be made use of, are the exception to that category of carrion. And then lastly, you have the mild najasa, which is the male infant's urine. And the condition is that that male infant doesn't eat food of their own desire. So typically that's below the age of 6. And that's based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, who said that the male infant's urine is sprinkled over or is made wet with water, and the female infant's urine is to be washed. And there's a distinction between the word that the Prophet ﷺ used, which translates to sprinkle or making wet, and between washing, right? So making wet, you can just wet the area for these minor mild impurities, and that's sufficient. However, for the medium or the intermediate category of impurities, you have to wash the area, meaning you add water and you try to scrub it and you try to get it out, that impurity, and you remove it. Whereas for the mild categories, it's sufficient for you to wet the area until the water overtakes the impurity, and you don't have to put in as much effort into washing the area. So we mentioned the first one is a male infant's urine. And some of the scholars mentioned the reason for that is because male infants would go out more with their fathers, for example. And that's one of the things some of the scholars say in terms of the wisdom behind why that's the case. And the second in this category is madhi, which is the pre-seminal fluid, which again, it's sufficient to wet the area to remove that impurity. And madi is different than mani, which is the semen, which is the white fluid which comes out with desire. And the pre-seminal fluid is the fluid that comes before it, which is thin and colorless. Whereas the mani, the semen itself, is white and it's thick. And the mani, the semen, which is the white fluid, is considered pure from an Islamic perspective, meaning it's not an impurity. Whereas the pre-seminal fluid is considered an impurity and it needs to be removed from the clothing or the body or the area, as with all the najasat. So once you remove these impurities from the clothes or the body or the place of prayer, that is 1/2 of tahara fulfilled in terms of what we have talked about. And inshallah, in the future video, we're going to be talking and we're going to be going more into now the ritual purity bi'idhnillah. And I look forward to seeing you in that video, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.